Ladies and gentlemen, I feel deeply honored to have been invited to deliver a message on the occasion of this conference on higher education and research that is presently taking place in Djibouti under the auspices of the UNESCO. Indeed, the chosen theme, Quality and Future Challenges for Eastern Africa, is timely, as Africa's future depends enormously on the revitalization of its higher education sector, the STEM, as well as research and innovation. Today, I would like to share with you my reflections on the need to recognize the growing importance of the revolution we are witnessing in the education, knowledge, and communication sector, as well as the need to mobilize knowledge, science, technology, not just for sustainable development, but as major drivers of growth. As a scientist, I remain convinced that strong institutions, science, technology, and innovation, and quality higher education will continue to play a profound role in advancing knowledge and improving the human condition. That's why I'm pleased to join my voice in your ongoing effort to build a movement for a stronger and more prosperous Africa. I would like to begin by sharing some thoughts about the major development-related trends occurring on the African continent, outline the key development challenges, and point to new opportunities in science and technology that can be harnessed to help tackle Africa's development deficits. Last September, as part of its agenda for the next 15 years, the United Nations adopted a set of Sustainable Development Goals. They are the most sweeping, ambitious program ever undertaken to improve the human condition. The main challenge will be how we transform these goals into meaningful actions that will impact the lives of those who need them most, the poorest on the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa, for our purpose defined as Africa south of the Sahara, remained until 2016 one of the world's growing regions with an annual economic growth rate of 4% according to the World Bank. A commodities boom, improved governance, sound macroeconomic fundamentals, commitment to reform, and new resource discoveries have all contributed to this robust growth trend, helping to reverse 20 years of economic decline that began in the 1970s and the 1980s. Africa is also the youngest continent in the world. By 2040, Africa is projected to boast the largest labor force in the world, 1 billion workers strong, more than China and India combined. Channeling this increasing reservoir of human capital to productive sectors offers unrivaled economic and social opportunities. But it will require skillful management and vision to take full advantage of these opportunities. Africa's youth bulge, where more than 50% of the population of sub-Saharan Africa is younger than 25 years of age, represents an unprecedented opportunity that must be harnessed through greater public investment in basic and tertiary education, particularly in STEM, vocational skills, and innovation. I remain convinced that the social and economic transformation of the African continent will happen only when higher education and greater emphasis on knowledge become central to the development debate. With online learning that has become a growing source of education for students worldwide, including Africa, the quality and access to broadband services and online content must become an African imperative. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered today as we share a common goal to keep on improving the human conditions through higher education. The question is, how do we embrace and sustain the concept of Africa rising, and how do we get from A to Z? It is now time to build diversified and competitive economies. Sustained economic growth must be accompanied by a reduction in poverty and inequality and increased opportunities for shared prosperity on our continent. This transformation can only happen when we, as Africans, build and consolidate our institutions. Building institutions imply governance, transparency, and sound economic frameworks. Needless to say that Africa has tremendous potential. It is home to more than 30% of the world's mineral reserve. Properly managed, these endowments offer unparalleled opportunity for economic growth and development. Strengthening the institutional and governance framework that manage these resources is a good place to start. Transparency can help increase accountability, ensuring that these resources are harnessed for the benefit of all. It can contribute to accelerate diversification and employment creation, as well as support further regional integration. Harnessing the power of technological innovation to support global integration, improve productivity, and foster inclusion remains one of the biggest challenges for Africa. Nations that have excelled in innovation have all benefited from substantial government investment, especially in building high-quality higher education systems and in the training of outstanding young minds in information technology, science, engineering, and related fields. However, the system won't reform itself without being challenged to change the status quo by policymakers, institutional governance, and a growing body of female academics putting themselves forward and taking up their seat in the boardroom of academia. Let me be clear. Africa's greatest potential is her people. By some estimates, a 1 percentage point increase in the working age population can boost GDP growth by 0.5 percentage points. This is huge. For this to happen, however, good jobs need to be created in the private sector. Today, only 1 in 5 people in Africa finds work in the formal sector. This must change. With wider access to quality education, healthcare, and infrastructure services, it can change. Which brings me to a topic that is close to my heart: women. I know that most of the women in Africa cannot afford not to work, but when they do, they are mostly employed in informal activities. We all know what that means: low productivity, low income, low prospects. We also know the constraints: access to education, credit, and markets. The gains to be made by overcoming these constraints are immense, particularly through girls' education. By some estimates, the economic loss in developing countries from the education gap between girls and boys could be as high as $90 billion a year, almost as much as the infrastructure gap for the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. As the old African adage goes, if you educate a boy, you train a man. If you educate a girl, you train a village. The bottom line is clear: invest in women. It has a great rate of return for the future, both economically and socially. It is also the smart thing to do. This gender divide is, however, profound at higher education level. Science and technology degrees have on average 30 to 40% less female students, and yet equitable access must be at the heart of any modern education system. Ladies and gentlemen, investment in science, technology, and innovation is no longer an option. The sustainable development of Africa's research and development requires long-term and increased government investment in science, technology, so that we can nurture human capital and create a cadre of current and future scientists who are equipped to take on the multifaceted challenges confronting our continent. Africa has to take her rightful place in a fully integrated global economy, harnessing new technologies, promoting research and development, translating academic research through entrepreneurship, appropriate intellectual property are ways and means of promoting productivity, employment opportunities, and the ability to move up the production value chain. Yet, to achieve this enhanced productivity, I keep reiterating that the science and technology gap must be bridged imperatively. OECD members have 12 times per capita the number of scientists and engineers working in R&D as compared to low-income countries. They also publish 25 times as many scientific articles. From increased agricultural productivity to higher energy production, from more efficient and broadly available ICT services to better employability around the extractive industries, sustaining the building of human capital in S&T are all highly critical to empower Africa to take advantage of its strength and unfolding opportunities. The 6-ton-fold increase in FDI flows into Africa over the last 10 years further highlights the pressing need to build local expertise in extractives, health, agriculture, infrastructure, and services. Conscious of this need, the African Union and the NEPAD, New Partnership for Africa's Development, have recently joined forces and have formulated the Science, Technology, and Consolidated Action Plan. NEPAD has also been instrumental in setting up of centers of excellence in the biosciences, water sciences, technology. We must strengthen existing partnerships and forge new ones that can carry the continent's science agenda forward and promote a shift in the center of gravity of African science to Africa, as we have noted with the creation of the African Academy of Sciences and the NEPAD Agency Alliance for Accelerating Science in Africa, AISA. Key funders, such as the UK's Department for International Development, the Wellcome Trust, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, have delegated key programs to the Nairobi-based AISA platform. This platform has been granted leadership in decision-making for better mobilizing African science, technology and innovation to the continent's development needs. This momentum should continue. The time is ripe to support a decisive shift in the center of gravity of leadership, governance and funding for African research, with the leaders of African public, private, philanthropic sectors embracing ownership and informing priorities. It is in this context that I have helped found the Coalition for African Research and Innovation, CARI, which will mobilize public, private and philanthropic partnerships to connect with and support science and technology and innovation for Africa's development needs. It is through such partnership that Mauritius can provide an important facilitating role to bridge the world of high science and marshal innovation for achieving solid development outcomes. Our aim is to help ensure that scientists on the continent are an effective force for R&D data generation, policy making, and economic development. The ultimate objective is to nurture the generation of scientists who can lead Africa's transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, it is no secret that we are facing uncertain times in global politics, which could negatively impact a rising Africa. Economic populism, inward-looking policies, cuts in foreign aid, and worrisome anti-science sentiments are all taking a toll on the existing order. Given that these trends could lead to a decline in international funding for science in Africa, I have been at pains to highlight the need for Africa to own her development agenda and shape her destiny by making investment in science, technology, and innovation a priority. We recognize that we cannot do this alone, and we need to seek partnerships that are anchored in the common good. The emergence of countries like India, Brazil, China, the BRICS, is going to provide an opportunity and further enhance South-South collaboration and partnership. This South-South learning and sharing initiative is, I'm sure, going to be a rich source of knowledge and will help build the higher education capabilities in African institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to stress another important point, which is the need to establish a strong link with industry and the private sector. The link between technology and the economy can no longer be overlooked. Innovation is pushing ahead at warp speed. You know it, you live it, you even drive it. Today's smartphones are more powerful than yesterday's supercomputers. We see cars driving themselves, printers making complicated three-dimensional parts, and robots doing the most complex tasks. Science fiction is rapidly becoming science fact. Therefore, higher education needs to be increasingly relevant. This strong link can be encouraged through sandwich program, as this is an excellent way of ensuring that the student is graduating with the necessary and relevant skills that employers need. Unfortunately, in many African universities, this dialogue with the private sector is not happening at the level that it should. We're living in different times, and they call for different solutions. As Abraham Lincoln once said, the dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. As our case is new, we must think anew and act anew. We thus need to change what people learn, how people learn, when people learn, and even why people learn. We must get beyond the traditional model of students sitting passively in classrooms, following instructions and memorizing materials. Computers can do that for us. Ladies and gentlemen, education must be the bridge between the present and the future, the old and the new. We must also build an enduring platform. By that I mean a new way of thinking about the global economy, the new multilateralism where all stakeholders take joint responsibility for the global common good, breaking down the borders and barriers that are really relics of a bygone age. This is really the only surefire way to bend the new age to our will, to manage the complex channels of a hyper-connected world, to get to grips with global problems that are no longer amenable to only national solutions because they completely ignore borders. As Africans, we also need to become producers and not just consumers of knowledge, and we should capitalize on the momentum gained at the global level while recognizing that all actions are local. As the saying goes, we need to think globally and act locally. We must mobilize cutting-edge knowledge and forge partnerships anchored in the common good for the benefit of all and become the voice of change. Africa must be active and not passive in generating ideas, become activist and not pacifist for an Africa-centric development solution, and all this couched in what is becoming the fierce urgency of now. Because, as I keep saying, development takes time, and we cannot afford to fail yet another generation. With these words, I would like to reiterate my thanks and appreciation to the UNESCO team for having given me the privilege and honor to share with you my thoughts on a theme that has far-reaching implications for Africa.